Alright, we're going to talk about how we round with Sig Figs, okay? So I'm assuming at this point that we already know how to determine the number of Sig Figs that are in a number. So if you don't know how to do that, then we need to watch a different video because this is just going to work from there. Okay, the first thing is adding and subtracting with Sig Figs. The first thing that you need to know with adding and subtracting is that the easiest rule to follow is that you round your answer to the least number of decimal places. So let's talk about decimal places first. So if we look at 34.01, we see it has 2 decimal places, and we see that 0.032, what we're adding to it, has 3 decimal places. I recommend that you do your normal math first, like you work your way through the problem and come up with your answer. Then we do the rounding. So we're going to look up here, and we're going to look at this one has 2 decimal places, and this one has 3. We're going to round the least. The least is 2. So I'm going to cut this one off after 2 decimal places. If you kind of draw a line down, that'd help you figure out where to cut them off. So we're going to make our final answer 34.04. Look at the 2 beside of it, and just like you've done in other math classes, the 2 tells me to keep it at a 4. Okay, 65.401 minus 0.20. If we, you can punch numbers in a calculator or do it in your head. Some of these are easier than others. This one's 65.201. Okay, this one has 3 decimal places. This one has 2. And we're counting that 0, and it doesn't change the place value, but it's there anyway. So we're going to cut our answer off after 2 decimal places right there. I get to keep 1, 2. The 1 beside of it says it's just going to round down or stay a 0. So my final answer would be 65.20. Okay, 350.0 minus 30.0. I know that you wouldn't do this in math class, that you wouldn't have the zeros on the end there, but they're significant, which is why they're here. If we do regular math, you would get, of course, 320.0 just following through with everything. Since both of these have 1 decimal space, this one has one thing after the decimal, so does this one, our answer has to as well. I realize if you put this in your calculator, it would just say 320, but I have to include this last digit because it's in the other 2 up there. So 320.0 is going to be my final correct answer. Okay, here's another example. We'll add this one up. I don't do it in my head as easily, so there we go. 250.0861. Or 250.861, I misspoke that. Same thing we were doing before. Count decimal spaces. This one has 2, this one has 3, this one lines up better. If I draw my line after the 2, that means I get to keep the 8 and the 6, and the 1, yet again, is going to round me down or just stay where I'm at, however you want to say it. Okay, so what if we don't have decimals? What if we have numbers that have no decimals? And that's a good question. I'm going to make up one really fast that's different from the other ones. Like, what if I do 350.1 plus just simply 2? We'll start here and we'll work our way back over. Well, if we add those up, we know that that's going to be 352.1. Okay, this one right here has 1 decimal space. This one, it's got nothing. It's got 0. Looks kind of like 6. It's got none. 0. 0 is less than 1, which means we've got to get rid of that last decimal space. So we're going to round it just to the 1's place. And there's a 1 over there on the end, so we just end up at 352. We're doing the same idea. Okay, let's look at this one. If we write our numbers down, we'll have 85,023. Okay, well, if there's no decimal places, what you're going to do is you're going to look and you're going to find the Sig Fig that's furthest to the right. In this case, it's the 5. In the 23, it's the 3. We were doing the same thing up above, except when you have decimal spaces like this, the last digit's always significant. So we were doing, in essence, the same thing. The 4 was the last Sig Fig to the right. It was 2 decimal spaces over. The 1 was the last Sig Fig to the right, and this one it was 3 spaces over. And you're just going with what's less. 2 spaces is less than 3. Well, we're looking at the same thing here. We're concerned with place value. This is the thousands place value, where my little circle was for a second as my pen was thinking. So this is the thousands place. This is the ones place. We're looking at specificness. The thousands place is less specific or less precise than the ones place. So we're going to go with the place that's the farthest to the left. So the thousands place is farthest to the left. That means I'm going to have to cut my answer off and round it to the thousands. So I get to keep my 8 and the 5. The 0, the 2, and the 3 have to go. I cannot just write 85 because that's way different from 85,000. So I have to fill in the rest of those places with placeholder zeros to make this have the value of 85,000. All right. Here's another example. We do our math. We're going to get 6,521. Okay, find the farthest sig fig to the right. The 3 is the last sig fig to the right in this one. The 1 is the last sig fig to the right in 221. This one's in the hundreds place. This one's in the ones place. The furthest to the left is the one in the hundreds place, which means I'm going to have to cut my answer off at the hundreds place. So there's a 2 next to it. Yet again, it's going to round down. I don't know how it's possible. Oops, I didn't mean to write that too. I don't know how it's possible that I've not had any round up, but hey, it worked. Watch it change. Now we subtract. We're going to have 545. All right. The last sig fig on this one is in the ones place. The last sig fig on this one, the only sig fig on this one, is in the tens place. The tens place is further to the left. So I'm going to cut it off right there. That means I get to keep the 5 and the 4. There's a 5 next door, and finally it rounds up. We'll have 550. I'm cutting it off at the tens place because that is the least specific sig fig in my numbers going into the problem. All right, 350 plus 15 is going to be 365. The furthest sig fig to the right in 350 is the 5 in the tens place. And on this one, it's the 5 in the ones place. Well, tens is not as specific as the ones, so I'm going to cut it off after that one. And yet again, we're going to round up. The 5 is going to tell my 6 to go up. Now, multiplication and division is, I think, less confusing. You follow the same rule the whole time. The rule here is that what you do is you round to the least number of sig figs in the whole problem. So I think this is easier. I guess we'll see what you guys think. This first one, I just put it into my calculator, and it tells me in the calculator that my answer is 8,553.25, if I read all of that correctly. And so what we're going to do next is look at sig figs. This one up here has a grand total of 5 sig figs. This one has 2. Which number's less? 2's less. Okay, I don't write these numbers out here when I do my own problems. I'm just doing this to simply help myself with it and to show you 2 is less than 5. So we're going to round, but this time I don't care anything about place value. I care about sig figs. We're going to round starting from the left. I get to keep the 8 and I get to keep the 5. That's 1, 2. Everything after that part has to go. Well, there's a 5 next to it, which means that's going to round to 86, and then we're going to put in 2 placeholder zeros. I'm not going to put in any decimals because with multiplication and division, it's not about decimal places and place value, it's about the number of sig figs. So my final answer for this one is 8,600. All right, my next one is a division problem. It's no different with the division than it is from the multiplication. Now, my calculator, here's the answer. It's going to be huge. 26.9870129.9, and that's all the digits. It does cut off after that. We do the same thing. This one has 4 sig figs. This one has 3. 3 is less than 4, so we start counting from the left. 1, 2, 3. We'll have to cut it off at that point. There's an 8 beside of it. Well, that's going to round that up to make it a 0. That'll round that up to 27. You do have to put 27.0. If you just simply put 27, that's 2 sig figs. So that would be a no. Excuse me. This would be a yes. Alright, the next one. We have 29.1 times 3. You can put it in your calculator. I put it in there. I didn't put the zeros on it because my calculator doesn't care about those zeros. Most likely yours isn't doing Sig Figs. This one right here is what my calculator says. This has 5 Sig Figs and this has 1. 1 is way less than 5, so I get to keep the 8, and everything else after that has to go away. The 7's going to round that up, so we're going to have to put 90. So our answer for this problem is 90. Right here. Now, on 400 divided by 10, you could probably do in your head that the answer will be 40. And if I put it in my calculator is going to say 40. But this one has 4 Sig Figs, and this one has 2. That decimal right there makes that 0 count, which means this has to have 2. In some cases, you have to add Sig Figs. So, as written, that's 1 Sig Fig, just this 4 counts. I have to put a period right there. I can either put the period, or I can write my answer in scientific notation, which it doesn't matter to me what you do, it's the same answer either way. This has 2 Sig Figs, this has 2 Sig Figs. Okay, I'm going to do this one a slightly different way because I'm thinking as I'm writing, what if we have 400.0 divided by 10.0? Okay, the answer is still going to be 40. My calculator is still going to give me an answer of 40. This would be another case of having to add something. This has 4, this has 3. Well, again, this has 1. So in order to make this work, we have to add a decimal and another 0 to give it 3 Sig Figs. Or you could write it in scientific notation as 4.00 times 10 to the first. You're just adding the extra 0 on there for added Sig Figs. Okay, our last one that I have on here, I just picked one more. The answer that my calculator is going to give me is 724. This one has 3 Sig Figs, this one has 2. 2 is less than 3, so I get to keep the 7 and the 2. This one would just simply round down to 720. Hopefully this has been fairly simple. You can rewatch it. You can also look at the other links that I have on the playlist on YouTube and see if that helps you at all. And we'll cover more stuff in class.